The drive to Carver Basin took 11 hours from the city. I stopped twice for gas, and once at a rest stop outside of Milford, where I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, engine running, wondering if I should turn around. I had $400 in my checking account, 2 months of back rent I'd negotiated into a payment plan, and a job offer that paid $38,000 a year plus housing. The math was simple. I kept driving. The road into the park narrowed after the main entrance booth, which was unmanned when I passed through at 6:47 p.m. A chain hung across the secondary access road with a combination lock. The hiring packet had included the code 7421. I memorized it on the drive, repeated it every 50 miles like a mantra. The chain dropped. I drove through, stopped, refastened it behind me. The ranger station sat 3 miles past the chain, at the end of a gravel road that wound through Douglas fir, so thick the evening light barely reached the ground. The building was older than I'd expected, cedar siding weathered to gray. A metal roof patched in 2 places, a covered porch with a single plastic chair. A white government truck sat in the dirt lot beside it. The plates read USFS-4471. I parked next to the truck and sat for a moment, watching the trees. Nothing moved. No birds, no squirrels, nothing. I'd grown up in the suburbs and spent most of my 20s in the city, so I didn't know much about forests, but I knew they were supposed to have sounds. This one was silent in a way that felt intentional. My new supervisor was waiting inside. His name was Dale Vickers, and he was 63 years old, with a white beard trimmed close to his jaw, and hands that looked like they'd spent decades handling rope and tools. He didn't smile when I walked in. He didn't frown either. He looked at me the way you'd look at a piece of equipment you weren't sure would hold up. "Marin Shaw," he said. Not a question. "Yes, sir." "You're 4 hours early." I'd left at 5 a.m. to make sure I wouldn't be late. I told him that. He nodded once, slowly, like this was information he'd file away and consider later. Good, gives us time. The station interior was sparse. A main room with a desk, 2 filing cabinets, a radio console, and a wall-mounted map of the park. A small kitchen through one doorway, a bathroom through another, and a hallway that led to what I assumed were living quarters. Dale walked me through the basics, where the generator controls were, how to prime the water pump, which cabinet held the first aid supplies, which held the flares. "You'll live in the back," he said. 2 rooms, bed and bathroom. No kitchen, but you can use this one. I stay in the cabin up the ridge, about a 1/4 mile. Radio range is good up here. Channel 4 for routine, Channel 7 for emergencies. I wrote this down in the small notebook I'd brought. Dale watched me write. "You take notes," he said. "Helps me remember." Good. He said that word a lot, good. But the way he said it didn't sound like praise. It sounded like a small relief, like he'd been expecting something worse and was pleased to be wrong. He took me to the wall map and pointed out the boundaries of my patrol area. Carver Basin covered roughly 18,000 acres of backcountry, most of it accessible only by foot. There were 12 marked trails, 2 designated camping areas, 1 seasonal lake, and 1 fire lookout that had been decommissioned in 1984. The terrain ranged from River Valley to Alpine Ridge. Cell service was non-existent. Satellite phone in the station worked for emergencies only. "Peak season is June through August," Dale said. "We get maybe 2,000 visitors total. Off-season, like now, you'll see a dozen hikers a month, maybe less. Most of your job is maintenance. trail checks, signage repairs, wildlife monitoring. I nodded, still writing. And search and rescue. I looked up. He was watching me with that same evaluating expression. That's the other part, he said. People go missing out here. Not often. Maybe 3-4 times a year. In peak season. But it happens. And when it does, you need to know the protocols. I did the SARTEC training, I said. Basic wilderness search. Grid patterns. Tracking. Forget that. I stopped writing. Dale walked to one of the filing cabinets and pulled out a manila folder, unlabeled, worn soft at the edges. He set it on the desk between us. This is what you follow, he said. Read it tonight. Memorize it. I'll quiz you tomorrow. I opened the folder. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, formatted with numbered lines. These are the protocols for Carver Basin, Dale said. They're specific to this location. You follow them exactly. No improvisation, no judgment calls. You do what it says in the order it says, or you don't do the job. I started reading. 1. When a visitor is reported missing, verify their entry in the trail registry before initiating search procedures. If their name appears in the registry more than once for the same date, do not initiate a search. Radio the district supervisor immediately and await instruction. 2. During any search conducted between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., do not enter Grid Sector 7 under any circumstances. If the missing person was last seen in or near Sector 7, delay search until 4:01 a.m. 3. When conducting a night search, refer to the missing person by their registry number only. Do not use their given name. If another member of the search team uses the person's name, terminate the search immediately and return to the station. 4. If you locate abandoned personal effects belonging to the missing person, backpack, clothing, gear, photograph each item from a distance of no less than 6 feet. Do not touch the items until you have radioed base and received verbal confirmation to proceed. If confirmation is not received within 15 minutes, leave the items and continue the search. 5. If you hear a voice responding to your calls but cannot visually confirm the source, stop calling immediately. Do not respond to the voice. Return to your vehicle or to the station by the most direct route. 6. The fire lookout on Miller's Ridge is permanently closed. Do not enter it under any circumstances. If you observe movement inside the lookout, or if you hear sounds originating from within the structure, do not investigate. Note the time and continue your patrol. 7. During searches conducted near Carver Lake, do not direct flashlight beams at the water surface after sunset. If you need to illuminate the shoreline, angle your light at a minimum of 45 degrees away from the water. 8. Upon locating a missing person, verify their identity by asking them to state their registry number. If they cannot state the number, or if they state an incorrect number, maintain a distance of no less than 10 feet and radio for backup. Do not approach until backup arrives. 9. When escorting a located person back to the station, walk behind them at a distance of 3 to 5 feet. Do not allow them to walk behind you. If they stop walking, you stop walking. If they turn to face you, do not look directly at their face. Focus on their hands. 10. If a search extends past 72 hours without locating the missing person, the case is reclassified. Do not continue search procedures without written authorization from the district supervisor. 11. During fog conditions that reduce visibility below 20 yards, remain on marked trails only. If you cannot see trail markers from your current position, stop moving immediately and wait for visibility to improve or for sunrise, whichever comes first. 12. If you locate the missing person's vehicle and the engine is running, do not turn off the engine. Document the vehicle's position, note the time, and radio for backup. Remain outside the vehicle until backup arrives. 13. Between the hours of 2:10 a.m. and 2:25 a.m., do not look directly at the north-facing window in the main station room. If you are conducting a search during these times, do not look north. Keep your gaze level or below. 14. If you hear your own name spoken by a voice you do not recognize, do not respond. If you hear your own name spoken by a voice you do recognize, even the voice of a colleague or family member, do not respond. Continue your current task in silence. I read the list twice. Then I looked up at Dale. He was still watching me. His expression hadn't changed. Questions? He said. I had about 100. I asked the only one that seemed practical. What happens if I break one of these? Dale picked up the folder and returned it to the filing cabinet. You don't. But if I did, hypothetically, he closed the cabinet drawer. Then I'd be training someone new next month. He said it flatly, without emphasis, like he was stating a weather fact. How many rangers have worked this post? I asked. Before you, 11, since 72. I did the math, 53 years, 11 rangers. That was an average tenure of just under 5 years per person. Where did they go? Promoted, transferred, retired. He paused. Or. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I slept poorly that first night. The back room was small, with a single bed, a dresser, and a window that faced the tree line. The window had no curtains, just a pull-down shade that blocked most of the light. I kept the shade raised because I wanted to see outside, and then I couldn't sleep because I kept imagining movement in the darkness between the trees. Around 1 a.m., I heard something walking outside. The footsteps were slow, measured, circling the station at a distance I estimated at 40 or 50 feet. I listened for 20 minutes. The footsteps never varied in pace. They never stopped. At 1:23 a.m., they faded into silence. In the morning, I found no tracks in the dirt around the station. I checked twice. Dale arrived at 7 a.m. sharp. He brought coffee in a thermos and 2 breakfast sandwiches wrapped in foil. We ate at the desk while he quizzed me on the protocols. I got every answer right. Good, he said. You're a fast learner, that's useful. We spent the rest of the morning on practical orientation. He walked me through the radio system, a Motorola base unit with 5 preset channels. Battery backup good for 72 hours without generator power. Channel 4 for routine communications with him. Channel 7 for emergencies that required district involvement. Channels 2 and 9 reserved for interagency coordination during large-scale searches. Channel 6 was marked on the console with a strip of red tape. Don't use Channel 6, Dale said. What's it for? Nothing. Don't use it. He showed me the equipment locker next. Flashlights, 4 rechargeable, 2 battery-powered. Flares, 12 in the primary kit, 6 in the emergency backup. First aid supplies, organized by type. Bandages, antiseptic, splints, emergency blankets, 1 bottle of prescription painkillers. I was authorized to dispense in severe injury cases. There was also a section of the locker I didn't understand. 12 small bags of coarse white salt, 3 boxes of wooden matches, a bundle of white cotton rope cut into 5-foot lengths, and a sealed plastic container marked emergency chalk. "What's the salt for?" I asked. "Protocols," Dale said. "I'll show you when it's relevant." The patrol truck was a Ford F-150 from 2008 with 140,000 miles on it. Dale walked me through its quirks. The passenger door stuck in cold weather. The heater took 10 minutes to warm up. The radio mounted in the dash sometimes lost signal in the eastern valleys. There was a toolbox in the bed with basic repair equipment and a locked compartment underneath the back seat that held a rifle. "For wildlife," Dale said. "Bears mostly. Mountain lions sometimes. You won't need it often." "Am I authorized to carry it?" "You're authorized to use it if something's trying to kill you. Otherwise, it stays locked." We drove the primary patrol route together, covering the main access road, the 3 trailheads closest to the station, and the 2 designated camping areas. The campgrounds were empty, off-season, but Dale showed me how to check them anyway. Look for signs of unauthorized use, confirm the fire rings were cold, verify the bear boxes were secured. At the second campground, Pine Flat, we found a tent. It was set up in site number 4, a nylon 2-person dome in faded blue. The rain fly was on. The door flap was zipped shut. Dale stopped the truck about 30 feet away. He didn't get out immediately. He checked his watch. 9:42 a.m. "Stay here," he said. He walked to the tent slowly, circling it once at a distance of maybe 10 feet. Then he stopped at the door, crouched, and unzipped the flap. I watched him look inside for a long time, 8 or 9 seconds, maybe longer. Then he zipped the flap shut again, stood up, and walked back to the truck. "Empty," he said. "But recently used. Check the registry when we get back. See if anyone signed in for Pine Flat in the last week." We returned to the station. I checked the registry, a thick logbook that visitors were supposed to sign, at the main trailhead kiosk. There was one entry for Pine Flat, dated 4 days prior. The name was Alan Marsh, age 34, solo hiker. Planned departure date was 2 days prior. "He's 2 days overdue," I said. Dale nodded. "Make the notification. District Office, extension 412. I'll start the preliminary paperwork." I made the call. A woman answered, identified herself as Linda in records, and took down the information I gave her. Name, age, registry number, last known location, gear description, overdue duration. She asked no questions about why I was reporting or what I expected to happen next. "Search authorization will be issued within 24 hours, she said. "Await instruction." Then she hung up. I looked at Dale. 24 hours. Protocol. But he's already 2 days overdue, if he's injured somewhere. "Protocol," Dale said again. He wasn't being dismissive. He was being firm. "You wait for authorization. You don't search alone. You don't search at night. And you don't search in Sector 7 until the grid map clears." He pulled out a topographic map and spread it on the desk. Pine Flat Campground was in Sector 3. The surrounding terrain was hilly but not severe. No cliffs, no river crossings, no obvious hazards. A person could get lost, sure, but the trails were well marked and the distances were manageable. Carver Lake was 4 miles to the south in Sector 5. The fire lookout on Miller's Ridge was 3 miles to the northeast in Sector 6. Sector 7 was to the northwest. It was marked differently on the map. The boundaries were outlined in red ink, hand-drawn, with a series of small X marks along the perimeter. "What's in Sector 7? I asked. "Nothing," Dale said. "Old logging roads, some abandoned structures from the 1930s. Nobody goes in there anymore. But Alan Marsh..." was last seen at Pine Flat, Sector 3, nowhere near 7. He folded the map and put it away. That night, I sat in the main room of the station with the lights on and the radio tuned to Channel 4. Outside, the forest was utterly silent. No wind, no insects, no owls. The silence felt like pressure against the windows. At 11:07 p.m., I heard the footsteps again. They were closer this time. Maybe 30 feet from the station, circling counterclockwise. The pace was the same as the night before. Slow, measured, unhurried. I counted the steps. 14 steps to complete a full circuit. The station wasn't that large. 14 steps meant whoever was walking had an abnormally long stride. Or they weren't walking the way a person walks. I did not go outside. I did not look out the north-facing window. I sat at the desk with my back to the wall and counted steps until 2:26 a.m. when the footsteps stopped. In the silence that followed, something knocked on the front door. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. I checked the protocols. Number 14. If you hear your own name spoken by a voice you do not recognize, do not respond. There was nothing about knocking. 3 more knocks. I stayed at the desk. I didn't move. I didn't speak. At 2:31 a.m., I heard a voice outside. It was faint, muffled by the door, but I could make out the words. "I'm lost. Please. I'm lost." A man's voice. Young, frightened. I thought of Alan Marsh, 34 years old, 2 days overdue. "Please," the voice said. "I've been walking for hours. I don't know where I am." I looked at the clock on the wall. 2:33 a.m. Protocol 2. Do not enter grid sector 7 between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. But I wasn't in sector 7. I was in the station. And there was someone outside asking for help. Protocol 5. If you hear a voice responding to your calls, but cannot visually confirm the source, stop calling immediately. I hadn't called. I hadn't said anything. I moved to the door, not to open it, just to listen. The voice continued, soft and desperate, and I pressed my ear close to the wood. "I know you're in there. I can see the light. Please just let me in." Protocol 8. Upon locating a missing person, verify their identity by asking them to state their registry number. I could do that. I could ask for verification through the door without opening it. I opened my mouth to speak. Then I remembered Protocol 14. Do not respond. The rule applied to hearing my name, but there was something about this voice that felt wrong. Not the words were normal, but the rhythm was off. The pauses weren't in the right places, like someone had learned the sentences phonetically and was reciting them without understanding. I stepped back from the door. The knocking resumed. Faster now. 6 knocks, 7, 8. A rapid staccato that rattled the frame. I went back to the desk and sat down. At 2:51 a.m., the knocking stopped. The footsteps resumed, circling, 14 steps per circuit. They continued until 4 a.m. exactly. Then nothing. I didn't sleep. I waited for dawn, and when the sky began to lighten, I checked outside. The dirt around the station was undisturbed. No footprints, no tracks. Nothing to indicate anyone had been there. Search authorization came through at 8:17 a.m. Dale arrived at 8:30 with a copy of the paperwork and a grid assignment sheet. Sectors 3 and 4, he said. Daylight hours only. Start at Pine Flat and work outward. I'll cover sectors 5 and 6. We divided the equipment. I took a radio, a flashlight, a first aid kit, flares, and a laminated copy of the search protocols. Dale gave me a whistle and told me to use it every 100 yards. 3 short blasts, pause, 3 short blasts. If you find anything, radio me immediately, he said. Don't touch it, don't approach it, just radio. I'll come to you. I spent 6 hours searching Sector 3. I found nothing. The trails were clear, the underbrush undisturbed, the wildlife conspicuously absent. I used the whistle every 100 yards as instructed. No one responded. At 2:15 p.m., I was on the northern edge of Sector 3, near the boundary with Sector 7. The trees were thicker here, the canopy so dense that the forest floor was carpeted in shadow. I could see the red-inked boundary line on my map. I was maybe 20 feet from it. I stopped walking. Something was standing at the tree line. It was shaped like a person, a man, roughly average height, wearing what looked like hiking clothes. He stood perfectly still, facing me. I couldn't see his face. The shadows were too deep, but I could see his posture, and something about it was wrong. His shoulders were tilted at a slight angle that didn't match his stance. His head was inclined forward, just a degree or two beyond natural. Like he was looking at me, but also past me, at 2 different things at once. I raised my radio. Dale, this is Shaw. I have visual contact at the north edge of Sector 3. There's someone at the boundary. Static, then Dale's voice. Do not approach. Repeat, do not approach. Is the subject inside Sector 7? I looked at my map. The figure was maybe 5 feet on the other side of the boundary. Affirmative, just inside the red line. Confirm the subject is not speaking. They're not speaking. They're just standing there. Do not engage. Return to the station immediately. South Trail, most direct route. I looked at the figure. It hadn't moved. But what if it's Alan Marsh? He could be injured, disoriented. Negative. Return to station. That's an order. I clipped the radio to my belt and started walking south. I didn't run. The protocols didn't say to run. But I walked faster than I had all day. Behind me, I heard a branch snap, then another. I didn't look back. I kept walking. The sounds followed me for a 1/4 mile before they stopped. At the station, Dale was waiting. He didn't ask what I'd seen. He seemed to already know. The search is suspended, he said, effective immediately. What about Alan Marsh? Reclassified. He handed me a form. At the top, in bold letters, it said search status, inactive. At the bottom was a line for the district supervisor's signature. The signature was already there. I don't understand, I said. We only searched for 1 day. He could still be out there. He could still be alive. Dale sat down at the desk and began filling out paperwork. His expression hadn't changed all day, hadn't changed since I met him. He was like a machine processing inputs, generating outputs, feeling nothing. There are things in this park, he said. Things that don't show up on any wildlife survey. Things that have been here longer than the trails, longer than the maps, longer than any record we have. You don't find them, they find you. And when they do, you follow the protocols. What things? He looked up. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that might have been emotion. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was older than fear, more tired. I've been here 31 years, he said. I've seen 4 people break the rules. 2 of them walked into Sector 7 after dark. One of them used a missing person's name during a night search. One of them opened the door. What happened to them? I'm still here, he said. They're not. He went back to his paperwork. I didn't ask again. Over the next 6 weeks, I settled into a routine. Morning equipment checks, radios, flashlights, first aid kit, vehicle fuel level, generator propane, trail patrol on odd-numbered days, covering a rotating sector assignment that Dale managed from a master schedule. Registry review on even-numbered days, cross-referencing visitor entries with planned departure dates, flagging anyone more than 48 hours overdue. Most visitors pass through without incident. Day hikers usually, families with young children, couples with expensive gear, the occasional solo backpacker who looked at the trees like they held answers. I signed them in, explained the trail markers, reminded them to log their departure times. They nodded, smiled, drove away. I never saw most of them again. The nights were different. The footsteps came every night, usually between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. Sometimes they circled the station. Sometimes they stopped outside my bedroom window. Sometimes they were so close I could hear breathing. I learned to ignore them. I learned to keep my eyes on my work, my hands on the desk, my thoughts on the protocols. I learned to count the hours until dawn without expecting them to pass quickly. Once, around the 3-week mark, the voice came back. "Marin," it said. "My name." Outside the door. I didn't respond. I didn't move. "Marin, please. I know you can hear me. I've been out here so long." The voice was familiar. It took me a moment to place it, and when I did, my hands went cold. It was my mother's voice. My mother had been dead for 4 years. Cancer. I'd held her hand in the hospital when she stopped breathing. "Sweetheart, please, open the door. I just want to see you." I turned my chair to face the wall. I closed my eyes. I didn't move for 97 minutes until the voice faded and the footsteps resumed their circuit, and the night slid toward morning like oil over water. In the morning, I found a single footprint in the dirt outside my window. It was too large to be human. The toes pointed inward, toward the glass. I photographed it. I filed the photograph in the incident folder Dale had given me. I didn't mention it to anyone. 2 months into my posting, another hiker went missing. Her name was Rebecca Torres, 31 years old. Solo day hike on the Ridgeline Trail, Sector 4. Planned departure was 4 p.m. on a Saturday. She never signed out. I found her car in the Ridgeline parking lot at 5:23 p.m. Engine off, doors locked, no visible sign of disturbance. I radioed Dale. "Missing person, Torres Rebecca. Registry number 472. Vehicle located at Ridgeline Trailhead. Copy, returning to station. Do not begin search procedures until I arrive." Understood. I sat in my truck and watched the tree line. The sun was setting, maybe 40 minutes of daylight left. The shadows were lengthening between the trunks. At 5:41 p.m., I saw movement. A woman emerged from the trees at the north end of the parking lot. She was wearing hiking clothes, khaki pants, a green fleece jacket, boots. She walked toward me slowly, steadily, her gait smooth and unhurried. I checked my notes. Rebecca Torres. 5'6", brown hair, green jacket. This woman matched the description. She stopped about 20 feet from my truck. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, looking at me through the windshield. I rolled down my window. "Ma'am, are you Rebecca Torres?" She tilted her head. The angle was wrong, too far, like her neck had an extra joint. "I'm looking for the parking lot," she said. We were standing in the parking lot. Her car was 10 feet behind her. "Ma'am, can you state your registry number?" She smiled. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm looking for the parking lot," she said again. Same words, same inflection, like a recording. I reached for my radio. "Dale, I have visual contact at Ridgeline Trailhead. Subject matches description. but is non-responsive to verification questions. Maintain distance. Do not exit your vehicle. I'm en route. The woman took a step toward me, then another. I'm looking for the parking lot, she said. Can you help me? I started my engine. Ma'am, I need you to stay where you are. My supervisor is on his way. She kept walking, 15 feet, 10 feet, 7. I'm looking for the parking lot, she said. Her voice hadn't changed, same tone, same rhythm, but her face was different now. The features were too smooth, like they'd been drawn on and hadn't quite dried. I put the truck in reverse and backed out of the lot. In my rearview mirror, I watched her stand in the space I'd vacated. She didn't move. She didn't turn to follow me. She just stood there. And then she was gone, not walked away, not retreated into the trees. Just gone between one blink and the next. Dale met me on the access road. We returned to the trailhead together. Rebecca Torres's car was still there. The parking lot was empty. We searched until dark, following every protocol exactly. We found her backpack on the trail, 3/4 of a mile from the lot. A blue day pack with a water bottle in the side pocket and a half-eaten granola bar in the front zipper pouch. I photographed it from 6 feet away. Dale radioed base for confirmation. When confirmation came, he collected the bag wearing gloves, sealed it in a plastic evidence container, and loaded it into his truck. We never found Rebecca Torres. After the Torres incident, Dale gave me the amendments. These are additional protocols, he said. They apply when a search meets certain criteria. He handed me another typed sheet, same format as the original. 1. If a search subject is observed but does not respond correctly to verification questions, terminate visual contact immediately. Leave the area by the most direct available route. Do not look back. 2. When returning from a search in which the subject was observed but not recovered, do not enter the station until you have circled the building once, clockwise, counting your steps aloud. If your step count exceeds or falls short of 36, complete an additional circuit. 3. After any encounter with an unverified subject, check all windows and doors in the station before sunset. Apply a continuous line of salt at each threshold. Refresh the line every 12 hours until 48 hours have passed without further incident. 4. If you hear the voice of the missing person after you have terminated a search, do not respond. If the voice identifies itself by name, do not respond. If the voice states its registry number correctly, still do not respond. 5. During any night following an encounter with an unverified subject, do not look at the north-facing window between the hours of 2:10 a.m. and 2:25 a.m. If you accidentally look, close your eyes immediately and do not open them for 15 minutes. 6. If the footsteps outside the station stop moving for more than 60 consecutive seconds during an active night, move to the center of the main room and remain there until the footsteps resume, or until dawn, whichever comes first. 7. Do not shine any light source directly at your own reflection between sunset and sunrise. I read the amendments 3 times. Then I perform the circuit around the station, counting aloud. 36 steps exactly. The salt came from the equipment locker. I poured it carefully, making sure the line was unbroken, making sure every threshold was covered. That night, the footsteps were louder. They circled faster, 23 circuits per hour instead of the usual 18. At 1:14 a.m., they stopped. I moved to the center of the room. I stood there without moving, without speaking, barely breathing. The silence lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Then the footsteps resumed, slower now, almost dragging. At 2:10 a.m., I closed my eyes. I kept them closed until 2:26. When I opened them, there was a handprint on the north-facing window. Fingers splayed, palm flat against the glass. The hand was on the inside. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I recited the protocols in my head like a prayer. At 2:30 a.m., the handprint faded. By morning, the glass was clean. There was a woman named Carla Briggs who worked dispatch at the district office, 50 miles south of Carver Basin. I'd spoken to her maybe 24 times since I started. Routine check-ins, supply requests, weather advisories. She had a flat, practical voice and a habit of ending calls with, "Stay safe out there," which I'd always assumed was just a pleasantry. 3 weeks after the Torres incident, Carla called me on Channel 4 at 9:17 p.m. This was unusual. Routine calls happened during business hours. Evening calls went through Channel 7. "Marin, are you there?" "I'm here. What's going on?" "I'm sending someone up to you. Should arrive within the hour." I looked out the window. It was already dark. No one drove to Carver Basin after dark. "Who?" "New trainee, Tyler Ross, 24 years old. Just finished orientation at the district office. He'll be working with you through the winter." "Tonight? You're sending him tonight?" "It's the only transport available. Budget cuts." She paused. "He's a good kid, smart, asks a lot of questions." I thought about the footsteps, the handprint, the thing that had worn Rebecca Torres's face. "Carla, the protocols." "He's been briefed. He has a copy. I just need you to meet him at the gate." I checked my watch. 9:22 p.m. The gate was 3 miles from the station. If he was arriving within the hour, I'd need to leave soon. "And if something happens before he gets here?" "Then you follow the protocols," Carla said. "Same as always. Stay safe out there." She hung up. I gathered my equipment, flashlight, radio, keys, and went to the truck. The night was cold, the sky clear, the stars bright enough to cast faint shadows on the gravel. I drove slowly, watching the tree line, watching the road. At the gate, I found a white sedan idling in the darkness. The headlights were on, illuminating the chain across the access road. A figure sat in the driver's seat, visible through the windshield. I stopped my truck 30 feet back and radioed the station. "Test call, Channel 4. Verify." Static, then Dale's voice. "Verified. Everything okay?" "I'm at the gate. Trainee just arrived." "Copy. Bring him in." I approached the sedan on foot, flashlight in hand, angled away from the driver's face. The window rolled down. Tyler Ross was young, like Carla had said. Clean-shaven, dark hair cut short, wearing the standard issue fleece with the park service patch on the shoulder. He smiled when he saw me, an open, uncomplicated smile. "Marin Shaw." "That's me. You're Tyler?" "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. I'm 28. He laughed. It was a real laugh, unguarded. I'd forgotten what that sounded like. "Fair enough. Sorry, I'm just nervous, I guess. First real posting." I unlocked the chain and waved him through. He followed me back to the station in his sedan, parking next to my truck in the dirt lot. I helped him unload his gear, 2 duffel bags, a backpack, a box of books. "You brought books." "I like to read. Figured there'd be downtime." I thought about the nights, about counting footsteps and watching windows and waiting for dawn. "Yeah," I said. "There's some downtime." I gave him the tour. The radio console, the equipment locker, the map on the wall with Sector 7 outlined in red. He took notes in a small spiral notebook, just like I had. When we reached the back hallway, I showed him his room. A mirror of mine, on the opposite side of the building. Windows face north, I said. Keep the shade down after dark. The protocols mentioned that. You read them. 3 times. Memorized the first 14. Still working on the amendments. He seemed earnest, careful. The kind of person who followed instructions because he believed they mattered, not because he was afraid of consequences. I wondered how long that would last. We ate dinner together in the station kitchen. Canned soup, crackers, instant coffee. Tyler talked about his background. Degree in environmental science. 2 summers as a camp counselor. 1 season at a national park in Utah before transferring here. Why Carver Basin? I asked. You could have stayed in Utah. Better weather, more visitors. He shrugged. I wanted something different, something challenging. He hesitated. And I heard things about this place. What kind of things? Stories from other rangers mostly. About hikers who go missing and never get found. About sounds at night. About, he stopped. You'll think I'm crazy. Try me. About how sometimes the missing people come back, but they're not the same. They look the same, they sound the same, but something's off. Like they're copies, bad copies. I set down my spoon. Who told you that? A guy at the district office. Old-timer, been with the service since the 80s. He said he worked here once for a few months. Then he requested a transfer and never came back. What else did he say? Tyler looked at me. His expression was serious now, the nervous energy gone. He said the protocols aren't just rules, they're survival instructions. He said they were written by people who figured out, through trial and error, what keeps you alive and what gets you killed. And he said the most important thing, the thing you have to remember above everything else, is that you never ever break them. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, no matter who asks you to. I nodded slowly. He was right. Over the next 2 weeks, I trained Tyler on every procedure I knew. Trail patrols, equipment maintenance, registry management, radio protocols. He learned fast, remembered everything, and followed instructions without complaint. By the end of his first week, I trusted him to run a solo patrol in any sector except 7. He never asked about Sector 7. I appreciated that. On his 9th night at the station, the footsteps came closer than they ever had before. I was in the main room, reviewing supply inventories. Tyler was in his quarters, reading. The clock on the wall read 11:53 p.m. The footsteps started at their usual distance, 40 or 50 feet. But within minutes, they'd close to 30, then 20, then 10. I heard them on the porch, heavy, deliberate, moving with a rhythm that was almost but not quite human. Then the doorknob turned. I stared at it. The brass handle rotated left, then right, testing the lock 3 times, 4, then a knock, single, hard. Marin, a voice, male, familiar. Dale's voice. Marin, open up. There's been an incident. I checked my watch. 11:58 p.m. Dale never came to the station after dark. Never. Marin, I need to come inside. It's urgent. I stood up slowly. Moved to the radio console. Keyed channel 4. Dale, this is Shaw. Respond. Static. Dale, this is Shaw. Priority check-in. Respond immediately. More static. Then, I'm at the cabin, Dale's voice said through the speaker. Been here all night. What's wrong? I looked at the door. The knob was still. The knocking had stopped. Someone's outside the station, I said, using your voice. A long pause. When Dale spoke again, his tone had changed. Stay inside. Don't open the door. Don't respond to anything you hear. I'll be there at first light. What if it comes back? "It will come back," he said. "It always does, but it can't get in unless you let it." The connection cut out. I sat down at the desk and waited. The voice outside resumed. Dale's voice, asking to be let in, explaining emergencies, growing frustrated, growing angry. At 12:14 a.m., it started screaming. At 1:33 a.m., it stopped. At 2:10 a.m., I closed my eyes. When I opened them at 2:26, Tyler was standing in the doorway to the back hall. "I heard screaming," he said. "I know." "Was that—" "Don't ask." He nodded. He came into the main room and sat in the chair next to mine. We didn't speak. We watched the windows and listened to the silence until the sky began to lighten. At 6:17 a.m., Dale arrived. He looked tired. He looked older than he had 2 weeks before. He sat at the desk and spread out a topographic map with red circles marked in fresh ink. "Something's changing," he said. "The pattern's shifting. I've been here 3 decades and I've never seen it this active." "What do you mean, active?" "The incidents, the sightings, the things at night." He pointed to the map. "Usually they stay in Sector 7. They come out, they circle, they test the boundaries, but they don't push. Not like this." "What's different now?" Dale looked at Tyler, then at me. "I don't know," he said, "but until I figure it out, we're implementing emergency protocols." He handed us each a new sheet. This one was typed in red ink. 1. During emergency conditions, no one leaves the station between sunset and sunrise under any circumstances. All patrols are suspended until further notice. 2. At 8 p.m., all exterior lights will be extinguished. At 8:15 p.m., all interior lights except one, the lamp on the main desk, will be extinguished. 3. Between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., at least one person must remain awake and stationary in the main room. Shifts rotate every 2 hours. The waking person does not speak, does not move from the desk, and does not respond to any stimuli outside the building. 4. If the footsteps stop circling and begin approaching the building directly, the waking person will begin counting aloud from 1. They will not stop counting until the footsteps resume circling or until dawn, whichever comes first. 5. If anything breaches the perimeter, broken window, open door, physical entry, all personnel will move to the supply closet at the back of the station and barricade the door using the emergency supplies inside. Do not exit the closet until daylight is visible through the gap beneath the door. "These are extreme," Tyler said. "Yes," Dale agreed. "How long do we follow them?" "As long as it takes." We began that night. The emergency protocols turned our routine into something precise and exhausting. Tyler took the first shift, 10 p.m. to midnight. I took midnight to 2 a.m. We traded off until dawn, sitting alone at the desk with a single lamp burning, watching the windows, listening to the sounds outside. The first night was quiet. The footsteps circled at their usual distance. Nothing approached, nothing knocked. The second night, Tyler broke a rule. It was 11:42 p.m. I was in my quarters, trying to rest before my shift. I heard a sound from the main room, voices, 2 of them. I got up and went to the doorway. Tyler was standing at the north-facing window. He was talking to someone. "Tyler," I said. "Step back." He turned to look at me. His face was pale, his eyes wide. "There's a woman out there," he said. "She says she's lost. She says she's been walking for hours. Step back from the window, now." "But she looks hurt. She's bleeding. I can see—" "Tyler, that window faces north. What time is it?" He checked his watch. His face went slack. 11:43. between 2:10 a.m. and 2:25 a.m. Didn't look at the north-facing window. That's not the window, I said. But the rule still applies. Whatever you're seeing isn't real. Step back. He hesitated. I could see him fighting it. The training versus the instinct. The protocol versus the pull. She knows my name, he whispered. She's saying my name. I crossed the room and grabbed his arm. I pulled him away from the window hard, and he stumbled backward until he hit the desk. Don't look, I said. Whatever you do, don't look. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then the voice outside said, Tyler. Tyler, please, let me in. It was a woman's voice, young, desperate. She sounds so real, Tyler said. They always do. The voice continued for another 40 minutes. It cried, it begged, it promised it would leave if he would just open the door, just for a second, just long enough to see her face. At 12:27 a.m., it stopped. In the silence, I heard something new, a scraping sound, low and rhythmic, coming from the roof. What is that? Tyler asked. I didn't know. It wasn't in the protocols. The scraping moved from the center of the roof toward the edge, then stopped directly above the north-facing window. Something heavy settled onto the rain gutter with a metallic creak. Then, slowly, deliberately, a face lowered into view. It was upside down. Long dark hair hung past the top of the window frame. The face was pale, features arranged in roughly the right places, but the proportions were wrong. Eyes too wide apart, mouth too small, chin too sharp. It looked like someone had described a human face to a sculptor who had never seen one. The face smiled. I pulled Tyler toward the back hallway. Supply closet, now. We ran. Behind us, I heard glass shatter. The supply closet was 8 feet by 6 feet, lined with metal shelving stocked with emergency gear. Blankets, water bottles, flares, a first aid kit, a hand crank radio, and, according to the emergency protocols, a bag of salt and a bundle of white rope. Tyler pulled the door shut while I upended the salt across the threshold. The line was thin but unbroken. Now what? He asked. We wait. Something moved in the hallway outside. Footsteps, but wrong. Too many of them, coming in groups of 3 instead of 2. They stopped at the door. A knock. Single. Slow. Marin. Dale's voice. It's safe now. You can come out. I checked my watch. 1:11 a.m. Dawn was 4.5 hours away. We stay, I said, no matter what we hear. The knocking continued. The voices changed. Dale's voice, then Tyler's mother's voice. He'd told me about her once, mentioned she called him every Sunday. Then my mother's voice, soft and familiar, and 4 years dead. At 2:14 a.m., something tried the doorknob. At 2:37 a.m., something scratched at the gap beneath the door. I saw fingers, too long, too pale, too many joints, pressing against the salt line. The salt held. At 4:51 a.m., the sound stopped. At 5:18 a.m., light began to seep under the door. We waited another hour before opening it. The station was damaged. The north-facing window was shattered. Glass scattered across the floor in a pattern that didn't match any natural breakage. The shards were arranged in concentric circles, spiraling inward toward a point near the desk. The lamp was overturned. The chair was broken. A trail of something dark and wet led from the window to the hallway, stopping 3 feet short of the supply closet door. Dale arrived at 7 a.m. He surveyed the damage without expression. You did well, he said to Tyler. You listened. Tyler didn't respond. He was staring at the shattered window, at the careful geometry of the broken glass. "What was it?" he asked finally. "Does it matter?" Yes, it matters. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. I need to know what's out there." Dale picked up a shard of glass and turned it in his fingers. "There's no name for them," he said. "Not in any language I know. They've been here since before the park was a park, before this was a forest, before anyone called this land anything at all. They don't want anything. They don't need anything. They just exist. And occasionally, they notice us. Why? I don't know." He set the glass down. "But I know what keeps them at bay. Distance, protocols, rules that were figured out over decades by people who paid with their lives to learn them. That's all we have. That's all we've ever had." He handed me a new sheet of paper. "These are addenda to the emergency protocols," he said, "effective immediately. 6. If any window in the station is broken, do not attempt repairs until at least 48 hours have passed since the breach. Cover the opening with emergency tarp from the supply closet, secured at all 4 corners with salt. 7. After any physical breach, perform a full inventory of all station contents. Note anything missing or moved. If any personal item belonging to station personnel is missing, report to the district supervisor immediately. 8. If the emergency lamp is damaged or destroyed during a breach, do not light any alternative source until dawn. Remain in darkness until sunrise." We followed the new protocols. We covered the broken window with tarp and salt. We inventoried the station. Nothing was missing. Tyler's notebook was gone. I found him in his quarters, searching through his bags. "It was on my nightstand," he said. "I always leave it on my nightstand. It's not there." "What was in it?" "Notes, observations, the protocols, the amendments, everything." He sat down on the bed. "My mom's address was in there, my phone number, the name of my college roommate who's getting married next spring." I understood immediately. The thing had taken personal information, names, connections, details it could use. "I need to report this," I said. Dale was still in the main room when I told him. He listened without interruption. "How detailed were the notes?" he asked. "Very," Tyler said from behind me. "I wrote down everything. I wanted to understand." Dale closed his eyes. "Then we have a problem." That night, the emergency protocols intensified. Dale moved a cot into the main room and took the overnight shift himself. Tyler and I were confined to our quarters with instructions to barricade our doors from the inside and not open them for any reason until we heard Dale's voice say a specific phrase. "The sun is up and the count is clear." I barricaded my door with the dresser. I lay in bed and listened. The footsteps came at 11:18 p.m. They were louder than before, more numerous, multiple sets, moving in complex patterns around the station. They circled for hours, stopping occasionally to cluster near doors and windows. At 1:33 a.m., I heard Tyler's mother's voice. "Tyler, honey, it's Mom. I drove all the way up to see you. Please, just let me in." I heard Tyler's door open. I threw myself against my barricade, shoving the dresser aside, and ran into the hallway. Tyler was standing in the main room, hand on the front door, ready to open it. "Stop," I said. He turned. His eyes were glassy, unfocused. "She's here," he said. "She came to visit." "That's not your mother." "I can hear her. She's right outside. She sounds scared." I moved toward him, slowly, hands raised. "Tyler, listen to me. Your mother is hundreds of miles away. She didn't drive here in the middle of the night. That voice is not her." but it sounds exactly like her. That's the point. Something knocked on the door. 3 knocks, the same pattern I'd heard before. "Tyler, sweetheart, please. It's cold out here. I just want to see your face." Tyler's hand tightened on the doorknob. "If I could just see her," he said. "If I could just confirm." "You can't. You open that door, and whatever's outside comes in, and then we die. Both of us. Do you understand?" For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, his hand fell from the knob. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I pulled him away from the door. We sat against the far wall, watching the windows, listening to the voice outside cycle through Tyler's mother, my mother, Dale, Carla from dispatch. Names I didn't recognize. Names Tyler whispered were childhood friends, a girlfriend from college, a brother who died in a car accident when Tyler was 14. At 4:47 a.m., the voices stopped. At 5:32 a.m., Dale emerged from wherever he'd been watching. He said the phrase, "The sun is up and the count is clear." And we knew it was safe. "You almost opened the door," he said to Tyler. "I know." "If Marin hadn't stopped you." "I know." Tyler's voice was raw. "I'm sorry. I thought I was stronger than that." Dale didn't respond. He just looked at him for a long moment, then turned and went to the radio console. "I'm calling the district office," he said. "We're requesting backup." Backup arrived 3 days later. Her name was Anna Chen. She was 51 years old, had worked for the Park Service since she was 23, and had been stationed at Carver Basin twice before, once in the early 90s, once in 2002. She arrived in an armored vehicle I hadn't known the service owned, carrying 2 duffel bags of equipment I didn't recognize. "You must be Marin," she said when she stepped out. "Dale told me about you, said you've got good instincts." "I don't know about that." "You've survived this long. That counts for something." She unpacked her bags in the main room while Dale brought her up to speed. The equipment included items I'd never seen in any supply locker. Glass jars filled with dark powder, bundles of dried herbs tied with red thread, a set of iron bells on leather straps, and a thick leather-bound book with no title on the cover. "What is all this?" Tyler asked. "Supplementary materials," Anna said. "The protocols work most of the time. When they don't, we escalate." She spent the rest of the day preparing. She hung the bells at intervals around the station, over doors, under windows, in the corners of each room. She burned the herbs in a metal bowl, letting the smoke drift through every space. She opened the book and read from it silently, lips moving without sound. At sunset, she gathered us in the main room. "Tonight will be different," she said. "Whatever's out there knows we're reinforcing. It'll test us harder. Push boundaries it hasn't pushed before." "What do? We hold, same as always. But if something gets through, if the bells ring in a sequence of 5, if the smoke turns black, if the book falls open on its own, you come to me immediately. There are procedures I know that aren't in the protocols, things that shouldn't be done unless there's no other choice." "What kind of things?" She looked at me. Her eyes were calm, steady, and very tired. "The kind that cost something." That night was the worst I'd experienced. The footsteps started at 10:47 p.m., earlier than usual, and within minutes, they were joined by others. Dozens of sets, all moving at different speeds, circling the station in overlapping patterns that made it impossible to track any single source. At 11:15 p.m., the knocking began. Every door, every window, simultaneously. The bells rang 1, 2, 3 times in sequence, but never 5. The smoke from the herbs remained gray. The book stayed closed. At midnight, the voices started. They came from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, the spaces between. They spoke in languages I didn't recognize, then in English, then in fragments of sentences that might have been memories. Marin, remember when we used to sit on the porch and watch the fireflies? My grandmother, dead since I was 12. Tyler, buddy, you still owe me $20 from the poker game. Tyler went pale. He looked at Anna. That was my brother, he said. That was Matt. Don't respond, Anna said. No matter how real it sounds, they're mining your memory, using what they find. The voices continued until 2 a.m., cycling through names and faces and moments we'd forgotten we remembered. I heard my father's voice for the first time in 15 years. He'd left when I was 13 and never come back, saying words I'd always wanted to hear. At 2:10 a.m., Anna stood up. It's time, she said. Time for what? She went to the table where the book lay and placed her hand on its cover. I'm going to open this, she said. When I do, I need complete silence. No matter what you see, no matter what happens. You don't speak, you don't move, you don't interfere. Understood. We nodded. She opened the book. The pages were blank, then they weren't. Text appeared, handwritten, in ink that seemed to glow faintly in the lamplight. Anna read it aloud, her voice low and rhythmic, in a language I couldn't identify. The words felt old, older than the park, older than the forest, older than anything. Outside, the voices went silent. The footsteps stopped. For one long moment, there was nothing but Anna's voice and the words flowing from the page. Then something screamed. It came from everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the ground beneath our feet. A sound that wasn't human, wasn't animal, wasn't anything that should exist in any world I understood. It rose and fell and rose again, spiraling higher until it was beyond hearing, a pressure in the skull instead of a sound. Anna kept reading. The scream broke, and then there was silence, real silence, the kind that meant something. Anna closed the book. Her hands were shaking. That will hold them, she said, for now. She left the next morning. Before she went, she gave me a copy of the pages she'd read. You memorize these, she said. You don't use them unless you have no other choice. And even then, she paused. Even then, there's a cost. The book takes something every time you open it, something you won't miss right away. But eventually, you'll notice. What did it take from you? She looked at me for a long time. The face of my daughter, she said. I have photographs, but when I look at them, I can't remember what she looked like before. Just the image, not the person. She drove away at 7:32 a.m. I never saw her again. The rest of that winter was quiet, quieter than quiet, the kind of silence that felt like waiting. The footsteps still came at night, but they kept their distance. The voices still called, but they seemed fainter, less certain. Dale retired in March. He'd put in his paperwork in November, he told me, but had stayed to see me through the worst of it. You're ready, he said on his last day. You've seen what there is to see, and you're still here. That's rare. What do I do now? Same as always. Follow the protocols. Train whoever comes next, and hope that whatever's out there stays on its side of the line. He drove away at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. By Friday, I was alone. Tyler had transferred in February after the incident with the door. He'd sent me an email 2 weeks later. Thanks for stopping me. I don't think I could have lived with myself if I'd let it in. He was working at a visitor center in Colorado now, somewhere with lots of people and no night shifts. I didn't blame him. Spring came slowly to Carver Basin. The snow melted, the trails cleared. The first hikers of the season appeared in April, a couple from Portland with matching fleece jackets, and an enthusiasm that made me tired just watching them. I signed them in. I explained the protocols, the official ones, the ones in the standard handbook. I watched them walk down the ridgeline trail with their backpacks and their water bottles and their complete ignorance of what waited in the trees. At 4:37 p.m., they signed out. They were smiling. Some people passed through without ever knowing. In May, a new trainee arrived. His name was Marcus Webb, 26 years old, recent graduate, environmental science, same degree Tyler had. He had a notebook in his back pocket and a pen behind his ear and eyes that were a little too eager. "You're Marin Shaw," he said. "I've heard about you." "From who?" "Everyone. You're kind of a legend at the district office." He paused. "They say you've been here longer than anyone except Dale Vickers. They say you've seen things." I thought about the footsteps and the voices and the face in the window. I thought about the book and the words and the cost. "I've followed the protocols," I said. "That's all." I gave him the tour. I showed him the equipment locker, the radio console, the map with Sector 7 outlined in red. When we reached the back hallway, I showed him his room. "Windows face north," I said. "Keep the shade down after dark." The protocols mention that. I've memorized them, by the way. All 14 plus the amendments. Good. But I have questions. You can ask. I might not answer. He pulled out his notebook. It was already half full. "What happens in Sector 7? "Nothing you want to know about." "What makes the footsteps?" "Nothing you want to meet." "Why does it matter which direction we look, or what time it is, or whether we use someone's name instead of their number?" I looked at him for a long moment. He was young. He was curious. He reminded me of someone. "Because the rules weren't made by us," I said. "They were made by whatever's out there. We're just following them." "But that doesn't make sense. If they made the rules, why would they give us a way to survive?" I didn't have an answer for that. No one did. "Some things don't make sense," I said. "You learn to accept that, or you don't last long." He wrote something in his notebook. That night, I sat in the main room and prepared a clean copy of the protocols. I'd written them out so many times over the past year that I could do it from memory. Every word, every number, every precise instruction. At the bottom of the last page, I added a note. "These rules will keep you alive. Follow them exactly. No improvisation, no judgment calls. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust the protocols. They've been tested." I signed my name and dated it. Then I went to my quarters and lay down in the dark. Outside, the footsteps began their circuit. I counted them automatically. 14 steps per circle, just like always, and felt something settle in my chest. Not peace, exactly. Not acceptance. Just the quiet certainty that comes from knowing your place in a pattern that's been running longer than memory. In the morning, I would begin training Marcus. I would teach him everything I knew. And eventually, when I couldn't do this anymore, when the nights wore me down, or the voices finally found the right words, or the book took one thing too many, he would be ready. That was the job. That was all any of us could do. The next morning, I found a manila folder on my desk. It was unlabeled, worn soft at the edges. Inside was a new sheet, typed, numbered. I didn't recognize the rules. They were different from the ones I knew, stricter, more specific, covering situations I hadn't encountered yet. At the bottom, in handwriting I didn't recognize, someone had written, "These are for you. When you need them, you'll know." I read them 3 times. I memorized them. Then I added the sheet to the folder and filed it in the cabinet, next to the protocols and the amendments, and the emergency procedures, and the pages from Anna's book. The sun rose over the tree line. The radio crackled with a test signal from the district office. Somewhere in the forest, something was waiting. But for now, just for now, the rules held. And that was enough.